Okay, hi everyone. I'm Hisham. I'm the maintainer of LuaRocks, the Lua package manager, and I'm here to talk about. Well, we have some talks about the past, we have some talks about the present, and this one's be more about the future, since I'm not announcing LuaRocks 3 today, but it's in the works. And I would like to take the opportunity to come over here and discuss the direction it's going with the community, so we could decide together which way to go. So let's see what more will be. I'm a PhD student at Book under Roberto in my final semester, hopefully, which means I'll be soon unemployed. Hint. And so let's get started. Well, I suppose many people here have heard of LuaRocks. This is the proper audience for it, but I feel obliged to make the introduction anyway. So it is the package manager for Lua modules, which may be written in Lua, or they may be what we call binary modules. That means Lua modules that are written in other languages, typically C, sometimes C++, and that are compiled into binary modules that can be loaded by Lua. So LuaRocks takes care of compiling, installing, downloading, and uploading modules to the repository. It defines its own specification format, the rockspec files, which are Lua files. We're using Lua as a data description language. And the distribution format, the rock format, which is just a zip file containing the rockspec and the sources. And LuaRocks itself includes an option, it's optional built-in build tool. So it actually calls the C compiler, and you can use that instead of a makefile, CMake, or any other build tool you're using for building your own Lua modules. And this proved to be a very popular addition to the tool. And last time we ran statistics, about 80% of all rocks in the repository were using the built-in build tool. So essentially, the LuaRocks community has replaced the use of plain makefiles and things like that, because it takes care of all of the portability requirements. It also knows how to compile and build code on Windows using either Sigma and MakeW or Visual Studio, and it knows the Mac OS 10 flags and all of that. And well, talking about future directions and features and whatnot about LuaRocks, it's important to point out what it does not do. So where do we limit its scope, and what's the kind of stuff that we're not planning to add to it? Well, it will not install and manage your non-Lua dependencies. So when you're compiling, say, Lua SQL, it's going to depend on MySQL, but LuaRocks is not going to fetch and install and build MySQL for you. So for that, you will have to depend on your operating system, and so on. And the other point where we kind of limit its scope is that it does not install and manage your versions of Lua itself. This is not entirely true, because in the Windows package, we do bundle a Lua binary in there, just so it can get started. But in general, on Unix, that's not the case. So for that, you have some alternatives. You can use it just like in other languages, like this version manager tools have emerged. So in the Lua community, you can use LuaRocks, which is written in Python actually, which is available in many environments, and it runs on Unix and Windows, so you can bootstrap a Lua environment out of that. Or you can use LuaVer, which is written in Bash, so it is more native to Unix systems. So you can just download the shell script and pass commands here saying, I want to use Lua 5.3 with LuaRocks, and you will get both of them, compile them, and get them set up and working with each other. And you can later on decide I want to install LuaJIT and LuaRocks for it, and then type another command and switch them over. So these kind of things, these other tools are doing well, and we're not doing it. So last time I presented in the Lua workshop was 2 years ago, and I think the talk was called like "What's New in LuaRocks," and it was more about the latest developments that were going on at that time. So it would be a good idea to revisit that and see what's going in the period since. So what happened since the workshop 2014? Well, it's somewhat, I would describe it as a slow and steady development. So we had a number of releases, right? But none of them had any like big major features that were like earth-shattering of any kind. Like we had the reorganization of the Windows setup, which was an important work that was led by Thijs back there. Okay. But you know, so around this installer and default path and trying to get a better Windows experience out of the box. We added a few more transport protocols, so support for different source control managers. And of course, lots of fixes under the hood, cleanups, and all of that. Also, this year we ported our test suite, which used to be written in shell scripts, you know, just running LuaRocks with lots of different combinations of flags and all of that. And as a Google Summer of Code project, Robert, which a student from Slovakia who I mentored, he ported that test suite to Lua. So now that runs on Lua using Busted. And the nice thing is that now we have running in our CI, our continuous integration system, on Linux, Mac, and Windows. So a big part of the work was that he ported the test suite to run on Windows as well. So we have a much higher coverage, for instance. Well, while things have looked kind of quiet and development of the tool itself, I think the most important thing that happened in that period was that LuaRocks.org happened, thanks to words of Leaf here. And so if we look here, 2009, and about the time we started counting when holding statistics, we had like 100 modules here. And around 2014, the Moonrocks environment, the website for downloading and uploading rocks was turned into the official repository, and since that gave a much better experience for users, now we had a definite change in the rate of contributions. So we are past 1,200 module now. We could discuss a few reasons about that kind of slow development that has happened, and I have some theories about why is that so. And one of them would be, well, because it works. You know, LuaRocks has been developed for a long time. It is by now its core it's pretty stable. It does what it has to do. Like most every Lua module that we come up with are always just kind of easily built in it. So apparently, you know, there's no reason for like huge changes in it. But that would be like a little too conservative way of looking at things. One way that's not very technical of looking at things is, of course, because of lack of focus that could be translated as either lack of time, lack of funding, whatever. But in the last few years, I've been doing my PhD, which has been like my main concern. On the side, I've been doing like other consulting work that was my secondary concern, and sometimes like LuaRocks ended up being like my third priority or so. So I haven't like spent too much time like just coming up with stuff, but just keeping it in maintenance mode. And the third reason is that we are seriously constrained by compatibility. So lots of times people ask for features, and I say, I would love to have that, but that would break the rockspec format. So we could introduce a feature in a new version, and then you release your brand new rock that would depend on that feature, and then all the other users who already have LuaRocks running, they will try to like install your new rock, and it will fail on their system. So we've been very strict about compatibility, but that has seriously held us back. So the thing is that the rockspec format has been frozen since LuaRocks 1.0, which was released back in 2008. And well, we were talking about LuaRocks during the coffee break, and someone compared it like dealing with the Lua community was compared to like herding cats, because everyone does things their own way, and it's really complicated to get traction on anything. So I have been super conservative on how to deal with that, you know, because if LuaRocks was like super nice but constantly breaking, you know, it would never get adoption. You know, so I've tried my best to not introduce stuff that would hinder adoption. But ever since this list is a replay from 2014, then the limitations of the rockspec format are well known, and they were well known 2 years ago, and they are still well known, and they are still the same. So things like the built-in build mode, which is used by 80% of the rocks, only compiles C89, and you can't use with C++ and so on. And maybe if it could, that percentage would be higher. That we have no separation between build time and runtime dependencies, and so on. It's a small list of features that everyone keeps asking for. So our challenge is, how do we change that, and how do we make rockspecs more powerful? One approach that we considered, and it was about like the tail end of my LuaRocks 2014 talk, was discussing the idea of having a kind of add-on system. Like, let's make the format extensible of sorts, in some way. So that way we would have like a core fixed rockspec format that would be stable, and then rockspecs could depend on add-ons, which could be downloaded on demand, and they could add new fields, hooks, and whatever. So development could happen in like little pieces that would be somewhat independent. But this requires getting the extensions point right. So it's a hard design task. Right? API design is hard. An extension API design, more so, for a number of reasons. And those would be like the two main concerns. Number one, how to avoid breaking people's add-ons. You know, and because we would design an extension API, we'd put it out there, people would start writing plugins, you know, and things that would tap into LuaRocks and start adding more functionality. And the next day you want to make some change in LuaRocks, and then the people's plugins break. So if we feel constrained now by the rockspec format, we would end up feeling constrained with its implementation, because all the time we would be worried that, well, what if I change this function and move it over here, maybe someone's plugin's using that, so we would have to have a super well-defined sandbox API, and that would require also to freeze it at some point so that the plugins would maintain compatibility. So it's kind of shifting the problem to somewhere else, and to somewhere else that would be even more complicated. So this avenue was actually explored. I mentored a student for Google Summer of Code 2015, and essentially exploring that was the core of the project. It was an interesting exploration, but the results were negative, so we ended up not moving forward. Well, it's not a bad idea per se to have an add-ons and plugin system, but I guess what I'm trying to get across here is that it's really hard to get it right. So right now, what I have in mind is to go for another approach. So let's just unfreeze the rockspec format and start adding incompatible changes. Yay! Yeah. Okay, so how do we do that without causing a lot of pain to a lot of people? Right? So it turns out that this was something that was already for a long time in the back of my mind. Like, I figured that back in 2008, when I came up with the rockspec format originally, I knew that that wasn't be final forever and ever, and that would have to upgrade at some point. So no one ever knows. No one kind of knows about it. No one ever uses it. But the rockspec format accepts one entry that's called rockspec format with a version number, which is by default 1.0, and it's implicit, right? So the current version of LuaRocks, it knows about that field already. So when the new incompatible rockspecs come up in the future, it will fail gracefully and tell you to please upgrade your LuaRocks installation. So And we have a type checker built into LuaRocks that runs through that Lua table that define the file, and it checks each entry that's present there against the minimum version that it's supported. So the current type checker checks all existing fields, like source, build, dependencies, and they're all marked as being 1.0 fields. So that means that in the future, we can extend the type checker and create like a new field called foo and say that it's valid only for rock specs that are marked, say, version 3.1 and up. And that means that if you're using a future version of LuaRocks and you decide to use one of those new fields that you just saw in the documentation that's available, if you try to ship a rock spec without marking it as 3.1, the LuaRocks type checker will not accept. And say, please mark it as being 3.1 at least. So I think this is I think at the time we already got some momentum so that we could add new features and so we could provide for more use cases and really ask people to upgrade their LuaRocks every now and then if they want to use new rocks that depend on those features. Because keep in mind that if those rocks didn't have those features, maybe they couldn't be written, so it wouldn't be able to use that module anyway. So, but then we have different concerns. One of them is, let's not break existing rock specs. We work really hard to have that nice graph with an increasing number of modules, and so we don't want to throw any of them away. The second one is, as always, feature bloat. Since we started going like all trigger happy about adding features, what happens to LuaRocks and its maintenance. And the third one that I just mentioned is that if you're using a new format in order to use a new feature, that means that rock specs may require the user to upgrade LuaRocks. And grading software is always a concern and might be painful. So to handle those concerns, what do you have in mind? First one, for the first concern, the most important thing is backward compatibility. So old rock specs must keep working, and will not new versions of the format. May add things, add functionality, but they will not remove any existing functionality. So that's why we have to be careful about what we put in. So backward compatibility is not hard to achieve. You just have to be careful about not removing stuff and keeping the old stuff working. Forward compatibility, it's hard. It's really not an option for us because of the strict type checking that LuaRocks does. So it means that, for example, one kind of feature that would be easy to make forward compatible. We could suppose that we create tomorrow a new option called LuaRocks test that runs some tests on your module, and that requires a new table in your rock spec with a list of test options. Since old versions of LuaRocks don't have that feature, they could just ignore that table, right? And they would work and it would install fine, but they would just not be able to run the tests. Okay. Unfortunately, that's not possible currently because the strict type checker will fail on that rock spec saying a known field test. I don't regret having added that strict type checker because it has kept people from releasing broken rock specs in the wild. So it was important to get people to early on to write rock specs correctly, to educate them on that. In the beginning, before we had the LuaRocks.org server, submission of rock specs was over email, and I would curate the lists myself and would read them one by one and would give feedback to developers saying how they could improve them and all that. But nowadays, we already have that culture built. So. About bloat and the concerns, I think one simple criteria would be, well, let's add functionality that's actually needed by real modules, and not wouldn't be nice if we had this feature, maybe some rock would need it in the future. That's a simple criteria would be, there's this real world Lua module that I cannot put into LuaRocks because it lacks this feature. I I think another worthwhile goal to add features would be features that make it easier and shorter to write current rock specs. Some of them are pretty convoluted nowadays because they have to do some workarounds. So those kind of two things are kind of related because it's about finding proper solutions for things that currently demand ugly workarounds in the rock specs. And the third concern about upgrading LuaRocks, this is the major pain point. Right? We currently support bootstrapping LuaRocks, and you can either download LuaRocks and do like configure, make, and you can either type I don't know, make install and do make build and make install, and we'll be able to do like a plain type of installation, or you can type make bootstrap, in which it will use the current LuaRocks to install itself as a rock. If you install it with make bootstrap, then the next time you're able to type in LuaRocks install LuaRocks, and it will upgrade to the latest version. The reason we have the two modes is because when Linux distributions install LuaRocks, well, they are managing the files that they were just installed, right? So if you install like using Fedora and you say yum install LuaRocks, that means that it's an RPM containing containing LuaRocks that has been installed, and it's in the RPM database, the control of those files. So we don't want LuaRocks install LuaRocks to go there and overwrite files that were installed by the OS. So we have to have those two modes. And this is the start of the complication, because that means that LuaRocks build configuration is very flexible. It has many moving parts. So depending on how you install or not, you're going to type in LuaRocks list to see the list of installed rocks, and it might list itself or not. So, and then what happens if you type LuaRocks install LuaRocks and you did not bootstrap it? What kind of error do you get? And so on. So it turns out that it gets more and more complicated. If you install it the right way, if you're like super careful and do everything the way it's supposed to be done, it works, and it's like magic, and it installs itself, it upgrades itself. But it's very easy to just get it wrong. You recognize it, and it's a problem. And it still doesn't work at all on Windows. We don't have LuaRocks install LuaRocks on Windows. Well, essentially because of the different file system semantics in which you can't overwrite open files on Windows at all. Right? So even that used to cause problems even from some other rocks. But now we're being careful that LuaRocks itself does not load any other rocks, just so it can upgrade them on Windows. But it would be important to get this situation sorted out. If it gets to work 100% well, I think we could even like auto-upgrade LuaRocks on demand, saying by the time you're trying to pull a rock that demands a new rockspec format, then why not just auto-upgrade LuaRocks and do that? So I guess this would be like, instead of all the nice usability features, like this very annoying feature it's the one that would be the most important to get sorted out. And talking about the fun features, here's just like a laundry list of possible additions to the format, and things that I myself would like to see changed in the rockspec format. These ones are to make rockspec shorter to write and to just make things more standard. So since the built-in is used by 80%, it could be a default mode. If you don't set any modules, right now people complain that they have to list every single module inside of a rockspec. We can just say, if you don't list any modules at all, just grab all of the Lua files inside your source directory or things like this. This is like just throwing ideas and possibility. And propagating external dependencies is also very mechanic and something that's usually done the exact same way every time. Of course, supporting other languages that would translate into the right flags for the compilers. Separating build dependencies and runtime dependencies is not a hard thing to do. This one would require a bit more support, but they are all like things that could be done once we no longer are held back by the rockspec compatibility format. So in closing, we do have a LuaRocks 3 branch on GitHub right now, so which is under development. And LuaRocks 3.0 will bump to rockspec format. This branch already uses rockspec format 3.0 and already has new fields and features that are not supported by the main LuaRocks 2 branch. Of all of these changes that I mentioned, they will not and they don't need to come all at once. So it's not like that situation in 2008 when I was like super nervous about, oh my god, I have to get this format right this one time because now it's the time when I'm going to freeze it. So the idea is that once we go through that bridge, then we can start making 3.1, 3.2, and just keep evolving it. But for that to happen, we need to set the stage to make the changes painless, right? So I'm welcoming everyone who would like to see new features to contribute and propose them, and send them as pull requests to the LuaRocks 3 branch so we could discuss them on GitHub. I would probably be worried more about that annoying stuff about the self-bootstrapping and those hard parts. But anyway, now we have a new test suite which gives us more confidence for making future changes. And I guess that's it. If you guys want to check out, here's our GitHub, here's our discussions in Gitter, contacts on Twitter, email, personal webpage, and all that. So thank you, and I'm open for questions.
I'm curious, what is the state of embedding LuaRocks into an application? If I have an application that I wanted my users to be able to download modules for just the application, so we install the rocks to a particular directory, potentially pull from its own online resource as opposed to LuaRocks.org. Is that possible right now? Is it going to be possible soon? What are your thoughts on that?
Right, so for the sake of recording, the question was about embedding LuaRocks and using it for managing plugins and modules for a particular application. Everything is supported apart from using LuaRocks as a library inside of the application. So you could have your own installation of LuaRocks that comes along with your application, and all of the configuration paths are configurable so that it would only install to your given, say, plugins directory, and it would only fetch packages from your own plugins repository. You can, like, through the configuration, only you could sandbox a LuaRocks installation completely, and then you could just take the command line tool and rename it for my app plugins, and it will be your own LuaRocks instance that would manage those plugins for you, and you would get like proper package management for free. So if you were to use it as an external command, that works right now. If you would like to embed it as a library, that doesn't really work because we don't have like a set public API for that. I've seen people like require the internals of LuaRocks into their own code and doing stuff like that, but then that's prone to break.
There's always execute.
Yeah, there's always execute that you could just you could just launch the command line tool from your application transparently.
I'm curious if there's any provision for signing packages so that.
Provision for signing packages, yeah, that was just asked for earlier today. And so, well, I'll give the same answer there that I just gave earlier. It's a nice feature to have, it's just that no one implemented it so far. And it will be a welcome feature to have. It's right now it's not on my list of priorities, but just for like the lack of an immediate use case for it. But yeah, it's something that it's not a patch that we would reject. But at the same time, it would require cooperation on both the client side, which I take care of, and the server side, which Leaf takes care of. So we could send the signatures back and forth and all of that. So maybe it's perhaps one day. I would like to see that. Any more questions? There you go.
Are you open to changing how the command line interface works by default? So right now, if you type LuaRocks install, you're going to get a system level installation. But if you look at a lot of other package managers now, they're kind of going towards site effective, right? And I think that's probably the direction. You can kind of see like mistakes made in other package managers. Do you think that we should kind of go in that direction?
Right now, the current version of LuaRocks does have a configuration option that's called, well, probably like local by default, which you can set as to true or false. And I think a very good indicator about what you're saying is that the fact that in my machine, in my personal configuration, I have local by default set to true. So that means it gotta mean something. And if we're going to change this, I mean, like a major version like 3.0, it will be a good time to do that change.
So local by default is, I think, good. But what about like directory by default? There's a tree in every single project.
Very much like NPM.
Yeah.
I'm not sure if that's the best as a default. That would be like a bit harder to implement. But I definitely think that would be at least a command line, easy to use command line flag, like dash here, would be something like install here, whatever, something. It could be like even just a keyword or like a word or flag or something like that. I don't know, but yeah, it's something to be discussed. I know that NPM is like the flavor du jour now, and so I've seen lists of people asking for features that went like, I have these 5 feature requests and like 4 of them like, why don't you do this and that like NPM? But like 5 years ago it was something else, and 5 years from now it's going to be something else. So it's I think it has pros and cons, and now, as I was saying, the reason why it's installed to the system by default now, and I've mentioned it in some coffee break, and I'll repeat now here publicly, is because one of my goals was to make the default installation of LuaRocks work with the default installation of Lua. So when you get the tar.gz file for Lua and the tar.gz file for LuaRocks, and you just type make Linux for Lua, and you type make Bootstrap for LuaRocks, and you say LuaRocks install LPAG, you get an installation of LPAG that works with that Lua. You type in Lua, and you say require LPAG, and you get LPAG. So that is the criteria for it to be in the system by default. Right? So I've even considered like some more stuff. So it's system by default if you run it with sudo, and it's local by default if you run it with a regular user.
System by default for singular users, and local by default probably manually.
Yeah, good.
But then I think the default should be for singular users, advanced users know how to change that.
That makes sense.
Possibly something that would make more sense is something like the interview config, to change settings. LuaRocks config only lets you change settings with executable, so you can just go, info install LuaRocks on first having your machine, just go LuaRocks config,
Yes, this is something that I would like to have in recent releases. I think it wasn't even listed as a feature here, but one of the stuff that was added recently was a LuaRocks config command. But nowadays it's read only, so you can only get, but not set stuff from it. But because then you have to parse and rewrite the config file. But LuaRocks has all the features to do that. It's not a problem. But it's one thing that I want to do. So if it becomes like typing an extra command instead of editing the config file, then that would be nice.
Actually, I have 2 questions. First one, why not have LuaRocks install Lua? It has access to the C compiler and everything else, then it can manage the install Lua and decide where it goes. And the second one is, do you plan on making the version string mandatory in 3.0 or 3.1 so that they can have 2 rock specs at the same time, like a 1.0 and a 3.0?
Well, the first question was about LuaRocks install Lua. And this one, LuaRocks install LuaRocks is already complicated enough so that you're going through the bootstrap process. I don't want to get into the chicken and egg situation with Lua itself, especially given that like LuaVer came out this year. I think LuaRocks came out last year, so they are both recent developments, but not that recent. They are already stable, and they took care of that problem. I feel that way. I used to download. Like in my CI scripts, I used to download Lua from LuaRocks myself and have like a sequence of commands to build it and configure it and do all that. And nowadays we don't have it. We don't do it anymore. We just we have a single line command. So like here rocks, I want Lua 5.3 with LuaRocks, and then you get that done. So setting up the environment, I think it's a different problem. The second question again was about
Mandatory version strings for the rockspec.
mandatory version strings. You mean like for the rockspec format?
Yeah.
The type checker makes it mandatory if you use the new features. So this is actually already in place, except that all the features are marked 1.0, but it's already in there.
Right, so if you want to use 3.0 features, you have to say
Yes.
rockspec version equals 3.0.
Exactly. So do we have time for some?
Yeah, one question about should we provide or should this project provide like packages for common operating systems?
sorry,
Because, should this project provide common packages for common operating systems like Debian or Ubuntu, or like you said that getting this LuaRocks org running, it made huge difference, but now we have problem that with many operating systems you get like 2.2 that doesn't work with this. And should we take this on our own hands and that kind of?
Oh, integrating LuaRocks into the operating system, like the distribution packages.
Yeah, provide the packages, or at least provide official some kind of like package.
Yeah, this is something that I never wanted to really get my hands on. About like maintaining LuaRocks for a particular distribution, because well, there are so many of them, and one of the frequent problem that I see is that when the upstream developer gets too involved in making their code work from one distro, that it ends up neglecting the other ones, and so it's more often than not you see code that's like really tailored to work in a Debian-like system, and then it doesn't work in the other ones. And I try to keep agnostic as possible about that. I do cooperate with the distribution packagers. Every time they get in touch with me, and I've met Lua Workshop 2013. I met Enrico Tassi, who is the Debian maintainer for the Lua packages, the packages LuaRocks as well. I got in touch. I was contacted by the Torch people. Also about their concerns with packaging Torch and Lua did, and Lua, they use LuaRocks for managing their own. They have their own repo of Torch-oriented packages. So, but I mean, when they say this is not flexible enough, please add another config flag or another compile option, I go there and add that. But I think I have to stay a bit agnostic. But yeah, that's why I'm so concerned about LuaRocks. Install LuaRocks. What I would like to say is just get any version from your distro, and then let LuaRocks upgrade itself and go from there.
So something I've looked at a few times is if distros can actually start using LuaRocks to manage Lua packages. And so it's a sort of weird situation where you want to install it, and the only thing that's a problem is the top level manifest. Like if the packages were to install or build, so the LuaRocks build as their build step and LuaRocks install as their install step, that would essentially work. Then I just end up finding LuaRocks admin manifest, which rebuilds manifest, and then turn it into first install. And I actually have built packages for various distros based on LuaRocks as a build tool. And I wonder if that's something that you would want to see more or see less of, or
I would love to see more, but I have no illusions about that because I also wear the distro manager hat sometimes, and I've talked to the other ones from the other distros, and they never agree with that. You know, because when I talked to Debian people about this, and I suggested just the exact same thing you said, they said, oh, we tried that before with Ruby gems and we're burned by them because they are repository, there's constantly breaks and whatever, it's not stable, and they make breaking changes, blah, 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 and they were not like as strict as the Debian process, you know, so they decided it was better to rely on their own stuff, and they would not do that again with other language package managers, and so yeah, but I have talked to the Torch people who were packaging Lua modules as Debian packages, and I don't know what's the situation exactly right now, but we were talking about adding rock manifests into their packages, so they would show up to be detected by LuaRocks as rocks as well. Even though they build it themselves, you know, they would put just a fake manifest in there and make sure that they would be compatible.
I've talked with both some of the Arch maintainers and the Brew people, and we're sort of, it's gone back and forth, like, is this something that LuaRocks wants to support? Or we don't want to go down this road and not support them upstream, because we sort of where it is all the time. And then,
Yeah, it's not just like people like to sit down on the table. I guess we're out of time. Thank you.